Hi, welcome to my channel where we question everything. And today's topic is why I disagree with Duran and Berletic. A couple of days back, the Duran and Brian had a podcast, and I wouldn't have done this video except for one thing and one thing only. Brian is still stuck on his T55. It seems to me he never researches further. And I should actually ask if anybody of you viewers are subscribed to his channel, please send him a note. I will leave the link to the T55 video that I made so that he can watch it and finally get informed. As I said again in the video, the T55 was presented or was given to Ukraine, and Brian made a big hoo-ha of that. Oh, it's an old age tank, and oh, it's way beyond his time, and so on. But what he never read is that the one that were given to Ukraine by the Czech Republic, I believe, or Slovakia, I'm not sure which one of them now, gotta look it up again, was a far upgraded version of the T55, and that this version was totally capable of confronting a T72 and take it out. It's that specific model, modified version of the T55 was not a piece of junk that belonged into a museum. But one also has to recognize that the T62 that was fielded by the Russians, I think in March or April, which the Western world laughed at, and what Brian type of made excuses for, is nothing more than a modified T55 tank. And a T62 is probably not upgraded to the same standard as the modified T55 given by the Czech or Yugoslavia, Slovakia to Ukraine. So please, Brian, stop confusing these and get a little bit informed. It's easy to verify, but just Googling it. And if you are too lazy to Google it, just watch my video. Then you can see it. But I wish you would stop talking about this nonsense. But in any case, so I watched the video, and it seems to me most of the questions were actually asked, the topic were asked was military orientated. Alexander did political stuff and so on. Fine, no problem. But again, Brian is supposed to be, or was, a U.S. Marine. I don't know what rank he had, but probably not a high, if he was an officer, not a high officer. So, but he was in the military. I'm not sure if he saw any tours in Iraq or Afghanistan. So I'm not sure what battle experience he has. But unfortunately, in this conversation, they talked about the air defense systems. And again, I can give you the link to the air defenses currently being used by the Ukrainians and by the Russians, and you can look at yourself. But for some other reason, Brian doesn't even understand what the function is of an air defense system. He was talking about the NASAM that's going to be delivered, and the NASAM is, I think, maybe one or two that they're going to maybe field 3 in total or something like that. And there's only one arrived. Well, one is one. And if you look at the purpose of these things, the purpose of an air defense system is to protect critical or valuable assets. That is what the function is. And the valuable assets can be something like a S-300 system, which is geared mostly to defend against aircrafts and some big cruise missiles or ballistic missiles. That is their main function, because these S-300s are enormous rockets. They are not pea shooters that shoot down small drones. That is the purpose. And if you look at the NASAM, which I have done a video about that, actually 2 videos about the air defense system, the NASAMs and the IRIS system, and the other one was the Russian air defense system, then you can understand what the purpose is. And the NASAMs are ideally for smaller drones. And they can shoot down aircrafts, but they have a limited distance of about 30 kilometers. And think about this in terms of radius. And the purpose is to protect Kiev. Or you can protect a power plant. Or you can protect either a power plant and a dam and water supplies. Whatever you need to protect. Now, does Ukraine have enough air defenses? No, 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 no. It is the Russians are flooding the air, and they are swarming over the air defenses, which is very limited. But then everybody forgets about the Gepards that the Germans have given, which is anti-aircraft guns, which are ideally suited for defense against UAVs. And there are also some systems probably going from Poland that they have developed themselves. And I think the French or the Spanish or Italy, somebody also gave some anti-air defense systems. And then they have their own from the Soviet era, which are mostly guns. So they do have alternative air defense systems. We never. And then we have the Stinger. And then they talk about the Avenger type of that's given to the Ukraine. And the Avengers are more than suitable enough to down any UAV, because they use Stingers. And Stingers are small, efficient air defense systems against UAVs and smaller cruise missiles. And even helicopters. Nothing wrong with those things, unless they don't function, but that's beside the point. So the Avengers are good. Nothing wrong with that. But, again, everybody is underestimating the Ukrainians. Just remember, there's a person like you on the other side of the fence. He thinks like you, he learns like you, he has the same motives like you, and he will defend his country and attack you the same way that you will do him. It's not you going to be the most clever person. The clever person sits on the other side as well. And the Ukrainians have developed tactics in order to sidestep the Russian strong points. Don't think about that. Don't think these people are dumb. They are just like you. Make no mistake about it. And then Brian also talked about, Alexander talked about the air-to-air missiles, which have now converted to ground-to-air missiles, and they cannot be interlinked into total air defense systems and so on. None of these two guys have any idea what they are talking about. None. As I've done in the missiles, in the videos previous year, I talked about the NASAM systems, and that these missiles could be integrated by the command center. And the command center, remember, it consists out of 3 components: the launchers, the radar system, and the command system. Same as the S-300 or S-400 systems or any of these other, they can all be interlinked. And it's not only the Americans and the Norwegians that produce these items. The Italians have their own systems, and the Spanish have their own, or French, they have their own systems, and they can all be integrated because they are all NATO standards. And what does mean NATO standard means? It means something like a simple USB port. A USB port is a universal port that is used by multiple companies. That's the interface. And the same with these systems. They have a universal, NATO-specific interface. And that's why they can talk to each other. And just like a PC, they have drivers for every type of system. So if they want to communicate with this Italian type of air-to-air missile, then they use the driver, the Italian driver. And they want to use the Norwegian missiles, and they have the Norwegian driver. That's what I'm talking now, is like roughly speaking, but you understand the principles. So I don't understand what these guys are talking about. Before you talk about these things, surely you can just read one or two Google items or do a little bit of research, but come on, people. And I see today they have, what, 310,000 views. So 310 people have been bamboozled. They haven't been given the proper information. And then they talk about, again, about all the weapons that are being, aid packages that are being given to the Ukrainians by the America and the NATO allies. And then they talked about the Hawk missile system. And the articles I read about the Hawk missile system is that they're going to give one system and see if it works. And if it works, the one system, then they will send all the other packages and upgrade them that are needed. Now again, Brian doesn't know it. But how do you maintain a missile? How do you upgrade the not upgrade, but do maintenance on the missiles? Well, they are solid propellant missiles. You know, not like the space shuttle type of thing. They don't have oxygen, hydrogen type of engines. They have simple solid propellants. That's the stuff I worked on, by the way. And they age. And when they age, they crack. And when they crack, they increase their burn surface. And if they increase their burn surface, and the pressure runs away in the motor, and the motor explodes during launch. So solid rocket motors have a limited shelf life. So what do? So if you want to refurbish a missile, the Hawk, you replace the propellant. That's the one thing. And then if you want to upgrade him, then you can change the guidance systems if you want. But you keep the explosive head. And you keep the shells, you know, the whole body and so on. It's not that difficult to do. It's not rocket science. Well, it is rockets, but not that rocket science. But surely they should have known that. And then we talk about the age package. So what did the Western NATO America done? Oh, they sent all the old weapons, the weapons that were in storage. Those are the weapons that they didn't send. They didn't send the new weapons. This is bad. It's all old stuff. They're never going to be able to fight the Russians. Well, if you listen carefully and you follow the news, then you would have found out that the Russians are doing the same thing. They're not bringing the Armata tank out. They're not bringing most of the bulk. It's not T90s. The bulk of the armament is T65s or T62s and the T72. And when those have been destroyed, then they will bring out the T90s. More of them. Or whatever they have in play. But they will still manufacture these items in any case because those were fairly good tanks and serves a purpose. And you will first use your old ammunition. Why? Because they have to be used up. Otherwise, you have to destroy them. And if you destroy them, trust me, that is a huge exercise to safely deposit of old ammunition. That's no joke. So, Shall get rid of the old stuff first. And that is what the Americans and the Ukrainians have done. In the meantime, everybody is being told that Ukraine, NATO and so on is training Ukrainian soldiers. Well, what are they training on? Maybe they are training them on the new equipment, the more modern versions. So when the old stuff has been used up, they can send a new. Well, they're not going to send a brand new one, so let's call the Abrams tanks. They're going to send probably the first versions, which haven't been upgraded to the front, and then later on. But there's a problem as well with that, is because it has to do with optics. What is Russia going to consider as the red line in supplying weapons? When is Russia going to decide NATO is fully involved? When they send certain weapons or when they put boots on the ground? Nobody will know that. Only the Russians will know that. So the Americans are moving slowly, more and more weapons and so on. And what are they also doing? They're supplying more than enough of 155 ammunition. Now think about this as well. So Alexander and they talk about, oh, the West is running out of weapons. But on the other side, they talk about that the Ukrainian army was trained by NATO forces since 2014 for 8 years. That is what they were doing. So why weren't they training modern NATO weapons? They were. That is what they told. We were told that they went up to NATO standards and NATO tactics and so on. But surely they would have started training them in weapons as well. That's number one. Now I'm sure that the Americans' purpose was to create a war with Russia, or at least that was the objective, and maybe Putin would never have committed to a war, or he would have done it, and, well, we now have a special military operation. Putin has committed forces, now we have a war in Ukraine, but I'm sure the Americans made calculations for that. So how can anybody be so dumb that you're poking the bear, you're planning to make a war, you are training the hunter for 8 years, but you do not prepare the necessary military equipment. So in the 8 years, the Americans never overproduced any 155 ammunition, never tried to do anything else because they didn't plan for 8 years. They were looking for a war, and they got the war, so they should have been prepared for that. But now, none of us really know. Did they or did not? I'm not sure. But that's a question what we ask. So in my opinion is that somewhere NATO should have made provision for this war because they planned it, they instigated it, they wanted it. So how can you not prepare for that? And then we have another point. So what's the budget of the American military budget? What is the military budget? I don't know the precise number, but I think it's less than $800 billion. $800 billion. So then we look at the American forces, and they are supposed to have, say, 1 million men under command, plus some civilians, and they have 700 bases. Well, is this 800 billion money all going to support the personnel in the 700 or 800 bases? Or is there something left in order to procure armament and ammunition for, say, maybe some training exercises and so on? Surely they set aside some money each year to produce ammo. Must have done that. So anybody that tells me that the Americans have more or less, according to reports, actually according to Brian himself, between 800,000 and 1,155 rounds delivered to Ukraine. Well, that was supposed to be delivered. So given that the Americans have given 40% of their Stingers stockpiles and 40 or so of their Javelins, so if you then think that 1 million, they gave 40% of their 155 ammunition, then the Americans are supposed to have, say, 2.4 million 155 rounds stored all over the world. No. The Americans probably have a huge stockpile of 155 artillery rounds. And they should also have a significant amount of cruise missiles and so on and so forth. And they should have a significant amount of whatever cannons they use at this stage. Artillery pieces. The 777 maybe, I don't know. Come on, an army with a budget of 800 billion surely has built up its military or ammunition or military equipment over the years. Surely they should have done it. If the Russians have done it with a 60 billion annual type of budget, then surely the Americans would have done it themselves. So the question is, in my opinion, at this stage, it's just a matter of time on when the Americans are going to ship the rest of the equipment and how far they are willing to go. And when are they going to send, when is the old stuff running out and when is the new stuff coming? And no, the production of a NASAM delivered to Ukraine is not going to take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years. How many NASAM systems does the American have? Surely not 10. Surely not 50. Surely a hell of a lot more. And if you want to send 10 to Ukraine, hey, that's a good number. Better than nothing. They can do it if they want. I am fairly confident that they can do it. Question is one, when? Well, the Americans are businesslike. Show me first. And that is what Ukraine has done. They showed them with a counter-offensive in the north, the Kharkiv area, and they've shown the progress in the south. Yes, Kherson was not physically won, but it was threatened enough so that the Russians withdrew and they could occupy the country, the area. In my opinion, that's a successful operation. And then they talk about, yes, the Ukrainians are constantly attacking the front line of the Russians and being driven back and then attack again, and they're driven back and they lose manpower and they lose equipment and they're running out of equipment and they're running out of men and so on. But I can show you a map which shows you the troop distribution of the Ukrainians. It's all over Ukraine. They are supposed to have 700,000 men. That's not a small feat. Even if they lost 200,000. But 200,000 doesn't mean dead. It just means injured or dead. And they lose equipment and they are supposed to be running out. But then we also say the Russians are running out of missiles. And here we have missile attacks again. No. You can't have it both ways. Don't butter your bread on both sides. If you are arguing the one side, you have to ask a similar side on the other side. And then you can talk about, which I have mentioned many times, Russian Ministry of Defense daily reports. And the amount of equipment that the Russians are stating doesn't make sense, it doesn't gel, it's not in reality, and we also should be unable to acknowledge that the Russians do lie. They're not always telling the truth. And the best example is a daily report. So I'm not totally sure. Well, in any case, the Ukrainians are still attacking the Russians, fronts, and they've been driven back. And this is a big bad thing because they are losing men and equipment. Huge losses, which I've said many times. What does it mean, huge losses? 12,000 men in 1 month, yes. In terms of bodies, that's a hell of a lot of people that died, and it's very unfortunate. But in terms of the biggest picture of 700,000 men, not that much. It surely had a purpose. They surely tested the lines. They surely tried certain techniques and tactics to counter the Russian strategies. There was a purpose. You don't kill, let men die for nothing. No general, well, not, no, can't say that. But any decent general or commander of any officer level should care for their people. So nobody's sacrificing, no, not nobody, again. Most of them shouldn't be sacrificing their men for nothing. And the Ukrainians are adapting. Because there are Russians dying. Make no mistake about that. There are Russian soldiers dying. And Russian equipment is being destroyed. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you don't want to acknowledge it, you're living in a bubble. Because that's not how war goes. This is not a holiday movie where only one side, like Rambo, kills 20 or 100 enemy line without being wounded or being shot himself. I don't know, it doesn't work like that. Based on statistics, you can decide that if there's 100 men against 100 men and have more or less the same weapons, and when they each attack might lose you 40% of the manpower, whatever. There are some calculations you can do. That's the reality, unfortunately. So a lot of people are dying unnecessarily on both sides. But then again, what are the Ukrainians supposed to do? Are they supposed to sit back and wait for the Russians to destroy them by attrition? No, they're not going to sit back. They're going to try the tactics to get around that. Now, again, I'm starting to read up on the Russian strategies and doctrines and so on. And one of the things that actually, I'm not finished, so don't think that's all of it. But the Russians do use excessive artillery power. That is part of their doctrine, and it's a main attack. And as I've said before, according to what I understand, and don't quote me yet, because I'm not totally sure, is that the artillery, the infantry is in support of the artillery, where the normal procedure in the Western world is that artillery is in support of infantry. That's a totally type of different approach. But then also, if you look at the Russian command structure, and when and where from this artillery commanders have to get instructions in order to either retaliate or to get coordinates from and so on, the lower officers of the Russian forces don't have that much autonomy. So everything has to come from higher up, and that takes time. And it was actually an American report on how to defeat this. Is that the Chechen, apparently, I think that's what they did, they stormed forward within 200 meters of the Russian forces in order not to be destroyed by artillery attack, because the Russians cannot attack that type of area. And the way that they did is that because the command chain is so long, from the artillery to the center where the instructions are given by the Russians, the Chechen had the time to storm forward and to evade any artillery. I'm sure that the Ukrainians will learn that lesson as well. That is how we adapt to certain tactics. Now, unfortunately, this is only part of the tactics. But that is, in my opinion, what they are doing. They're losing men, yes. Unfortunately, that's one of the things. You cannot have war without casualties. I mean, if you think about this, according to Ukraine, according to the report, that UIVs, well, we all know UIVs play a big role. In the old days, you had spotters, and the spotters adjusted the fire of the artillery, and then that's it. But now you have UIVs because, unfortunately, spotters are not that undetectable anymore. So it's actually a dangerous position to be a spotter because you have radio communication. If you have radio communication, then the enemy can locate you by your radio communication. And then they target you as a spotter. So, sorry, tough luck for you. So now they use UIVs. And in the UIVs, as soon as Ukrainians notice there's a UIV over them, and they've been noticed, they know they have between 10 and 15 minutes to vacate that area. And if they are not, then they are annihilated by artillery fire. So the Ukrainians already know this. In any case, does Brian talk about this? Does Alexander? Brian is supposed to be the military expert. But unfortunately, he makes so many mistakes that whatever he knows actually very little. Sorry to say, I don't want to break down the man. It's not my purpose. I just want to provide extra information and open the people's eyes in order for them to see that there is another world on the other side. And don't live in a bubble. But I will still make a video about Russian tactics. And unfortunately, maybe this weekend I'll make the one about the artillery pieces for the Ukrainians and the Russians. And see what we can find out and get at least some background, some idea what it means to be artillery dual battles. We have to understand that as well. Most of the commentators sit back, high level, look at the big picture from far, far away, and don't understand the problems that are occurring. And that's why I made the time-lapse progress of the Russian offensive since February. And if you view it from a distance, then you can see, well, no. Things are not going as they should be going. Seriously, mistakes have been made. The mistakes are not unrecoverable. Don't make a mistake about that. They are. But glorifying and making the Russians invincible and the Ukrainians being stupid and so on, no. Or the NATO's running out of ammo or military equipment, no. Or America and NATO's are banning Ukraine, no. That's not happening. It is existential to NATO, this you fight, as it is existential to Russia to win this fight and achieve its objects. That is how it goes. But at one stage they will have to submit to probably defeat, but that's still a way off. Maybe it's not going to end in any case in a year. Maybe it's going to take 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, similar to Syria. How long are the Russians now in Syria? 5, 7 years? Yeah, 2015 I think they went. I'm not totally sure, so I can be corrected. So, sorry, there's a lot of other stuff talked about. None of the stuff I can agree with. It falls in the same category as what I was talking about. Some of the stuff is, yeah, you can accept that, but I would say 80% of the podcast was bollocks. But it's for you to decide. I will leave a link to the podcast. You can watch it yourself. Unfortunately, it's an hour and a half. A little bit more than an hour and a half. But there's also some questions. So that's my story for today. If you like what you heard, then subscribe to the channel, spread the word, tell your friends. Didn't like it, too bad for you. And then until next time, cheers.